and welcome to our LinkedIn Live session today. My name is Catherine and I'm the Director of the Business of Data team here at Corinium. So welcome to this LinkedIn Live. We do these industry panels every month, and today we are talking all about the financial services. Now, this is truly a global panel. We have panelists joining us from all over, and I will shortly introduce them. But something I do want to say right from the outset is we are doing this live, and I certainly don't do it for my own benefit. It would be way less stressful to pre-record. But the reason we do these things live is to allow you the chance to ask your questions, and also so that I can look across and see who's joining us. So hello, Paula from California. Hello, Musala. Thank you very much for joining us. Do get those questions. Oh, from Morocco. Hello. Thank you for joining us. Do get those questions in as we think of them. I have got these brilliant guests for 45 minutes, so use that time well to make sure you get your questions answered. Now, with that, I am going to be bringing on my guests as we speak, and I will ask them one by one to introduce themselves. Welcome, everyone. Lovely to have you here. So as I can, just a quick reminder to my guests to mute yourself if you're not the one talking, just to help channel that sound. So let's go around and do a quick round of introductions. Tell us where you are dialing in from today, your role and your company. Gladwin, over to you first.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Gladwin Mendez. I am the Data and Information Security Officer at Fisher Funds, all the way down from New Zealand. Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us, Gladwin. The time of day that you're dialing in is a little bit unsocial, so thank you so much for joining us. Jerry, lovely to see you as always. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Catherine. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jerry Gupta. I'm calling in from Boston, Massachusetts. I work at Swiss Re, and I am Senior Vice President there. And I lead, I'm a PNC lead, and I'm responsible for tech-enabled, data-driven initiatives.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Sonya, another folk joining us from New Zealand this morning. Lovely to have you joining us. If you'd like to intro yourself.
Yes, good morning from the home of the America's Cup. Sonya Crosby. I'm the Chief Data Officer at Westpac New Zealand, and I've been in this role for 6 months, so you can ask me anything.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Meena, it's always a pleasure to be joined by you. For those of you who listen regularly to the podcast, you may have heard from Meena previously. If you'd like to give an intro, Meena.
Meena Thanikachalam. I'm Head of Data Strategy and Architecture for Ally Financial. Very excited to be part of this discussion today. Looking forward to hear from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and hello to those of you in the audience as well. Gabriella, thank you for joining from the Netherlands. We are drawing a lovely global crowd here today, and Usafa as well. Thank you for joining us. And then, last but certainly not least, Dan. Hello, one of our regulars as always. If you'd like to give an intro.
Sure. Am I a regular? That's great. I'm Dan Power from State Street in the Global Markets Business Unit. I'm the Head of Data Governance for Global Markets, and really looking forward to the conversation today. I find that I learn probably more than anybody else, so a lot of times I just want to listen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, you feel like a regular to me, Dan, because obviously you join me on the weekly Business of Data Clubhouse Power Hour. Now, if you are on Clubhouse, we'd love to see you join that. That happens at 2 p.m. GMT every Friday. And as I say, Dan is a frequent joiner of that conversation. So please do join us. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about challenges and opportunities specifically within the financial services. So I have a couple pre-made questions ready to go for our guests. But as I said at the top of the conversation here, we would love to have your questions coming from you as well. So please do get those into the comments and I will gladly put them to our guests today. So a big challenge that I have seen and heard is all about data quality and data governance. So my question to you to begin with is, when it comes to data quality and data governance, when is good enough? Dan, I'll go to you first for that one.
Okay. You know, it brings me back to a conference presentation I heard a number of years ago where they talked about the incremental cost. So to go from like 80% data quality to 90% was not too bad. You know, they were able to do that. They made a number of changes to the platform and then tightened up the rules, and it was doable. Then the next increment from 90 to 95 was quite a bit harder. And they needed to do it because the background was that the company was basically required to set aside capital if they couldn't show that loans were collateralized. So if there was a data quality issue between the loan and the collateral, they had to set aside capital for that in the event of a loss. So every percentage point saved them, millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. So what they found was, as they got over 95, those last 5 points were really tough because they'd already dealt with all the low-hanging fruit. They'd taken care of all the easy fixes, and all that was left were the really puzzling one-offs that, add them all up. They do add up to a few percentage points. So I think the answer is there's going to be a point at which you'll hit the point of diminishing returns, and those last few percentage points may not be doable. The problem is the business typically expects that there's no problem getting to 100.0%, data quality, right? And they don't necessarily know about that last few kind of almost unachievable percentage points in data quality.
Thank you so much. I think that's such an interesting way to kick us off as well, to kind of consider the more challenging aspect versus that low-hanging fruit and somewhat easier to achieve elements as well. So thank you, Dan. Jerry, what are your thoughts on this when it comes to data quality and data governance? When is good enough?
Thanks, Catherine. I think both of these topics are really broad, really vast, and can take the entire panel. I'll touch upon data governance really quickly. I think that's a really complicated topic. It's very industry specific. But in my mind, given the environment we are in right now, given where regulators are moving towards, when it comes to data governance, especially if it includes things like privacy and ethics and stuff like that, I think it's almost binary at this point. Either you are good or you're not, right? So good enough maybe doesn't quite cut it. But again, it's industry specific, right? If you're highly regulated industry, it's a little, your burden's a little bit higher. When it comes to data quality, I echo Dan's comments, right? It's good, excellent, perfect. And, I haven't come across a perfect data set yet, and I've been doing this for 15 years. And when it comes to good or good enough, you have to look at what data you have available right now, right? So either longitudinally or latitude-wise, and it's really difficult to know when you have enough or it's good enough. So we have a concept we call data segregation, right? Which is yes, in order for us to fulfill and meet the criteria for success for this project, we need a broad set of data. We can wait 3, 6, 8 months to get that, or can we find that segregated data set that gets us started? We can get some initial descriptive analysis. Maybe we can get some additional insights, run some initial models, and that will also guide us as we collect more data, right? So I think getting to that piece is fairly easy. And in that case, all you have to do is look at either latitude or longitudinal data that is most complete. So for example, if you take the case of hospitalizations in COVID, global pandemic, so many different things, then you have to say, okay, you get country-specific data, hospital-specific data, which country or which hospital, which region, which population has the most complete data. Start working with that and then wait for other data to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Jerry. We've got a few comments coming in here as well. So Phil has added in saying it depends on what data quality means, which I think is a really interesting and important point as well, because that does differ for all of us, I think. Meena, how about yourself? When it comes to data quality and data governance, when is good enough?
Yeah, so data quality, when we talk about quality, it's very crucial for organizations to derive any value out of the data. So you're making a lot of investments. Some organizations will be making investments to upgrade the technology, the platform. They'll be thinking about strategy as how I can modernize the platform and how I can serve my customers and business better. But then one of the foundational capabilities to ensure the quality of the data is as good as possible, right? So if the quality is accurate, then naturally you're going to derive value out of the data, be it as a data scientist or an analyst or a BI user. They're going to make use of the high quality data to do their job. However, if it's of poor quality, I don't think you're going to derive any insights out of the data. It's all junk data, which you cannot interpret. So again, it depends on the maturity level. You cannot achieve everything overnight. So you need to have foundational capabilities and the maturity model that you want to set up and achieve that maturity level incrementally, right? Some organizations are very mature. When there is any poor quality data, they would use machine learning to even alert proactively, say this data is incorrect, it doesn't meet the standards, or it's not as per the format. So let's not ingest this data. Let data steward look at it. And when did we get a similar type of data? Was it a year ago or 2 years back we received similar type of data? Why did we receive? So those sort of proactive measures are implemented in many organizations. It again depends on the organization, where they are in the current journey, what sort of capabilities that they have today, and where do they want to go. So it's a phased transition when it comes to quality. But I think it's one of the areas that you want to control, because where the quality issues happen, at the origin, you might want to put some controls, because you don't want that to propagate into multiple systems and multiple platforms. So it's more effective if you could control at the place of origin. So that would be my recommendation. And there is no limit. I would say when it comes to data quality, it has to be 100% accurate.
Fantastic. And Meena, I love that point that you make as well about the fact that it's not going to be solved overnight. I think for many executives that I speak to, when you talk about data quality, given the importance it can be, it feels quite overwhelming and you feel like you have to get it all sorted now, but actually it is a process and a journey. And as you say, taking that proactive approach will help down the line, obviously. And those dealing with a large amount of legacy, of course, they're going to be, having to deal with a fair bit more. Now, just taking a quick look at the comments here. Morgan, lovely to see you joining us as always, who comments, very true, quality is the easiest measurement, but many activities are needed to build a quality environment. Thank you so much, Morgan, for adding that in. Gladwin, over to you. So what do you have to add into this conversation about data quality and governance, and when good is good enough?
Look, I think adding to the comments that have been raised earlier, I strongly believe that it depends and it's different for each organization and industry. The maturity and ability to actually implement these things practically, right? The key term here is practically, and I would say following good practice, which is sort of looking at what will work with their organization, right? Rather than, I think a lot of people like throwing a best practice, which is something straight out of a book that's not really going to be practical or pragmatic. Using sort of data quality, for example, it's important to, in my view, to measure, and that's the key thing. And then engaging with the business and third-party providers to mutually agree what is practically good enough over the short, medium, and long term, right? Just coming up with a plan. Again, as everyone's touched upon, you can't do it overnight. And the key thing also with that is start with something small that will make and sort of turn the dial on a good business use case, and then you want to be iterating from there. Let each success build the momentum up, rather than what I think trying to do too much in a big bang approach. It's setting everyone up for failure. And if failure occurs, and I think all of us have seen scenarios where there's been failure, and then what you want to avoid is just saying that I've heard and I use is avoid something, but data governance is something everyone needs, but no one wants, right? You have to be really careful trying to balance that out. And look, also at the same point, there are certain things within data governance, like security and privacy, that should have zero wiggle room, and everyone knows how hard that is on its own. But others realistically are very much a journey, and you just have to iterate and build on that. But first measure it, and then actually decide where you're going to go, the short, medium, and long term, and what's right for your organization.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Gladwin. And I'm going to completely butcher the quote, but it's the idea that if you care about it, you have to measure it, right? So very, very true. Now, we have had a question come in. Gabriella, I've seen your question and it is fantastic, so I'm going to ask it, but I just want to round off this question with Sonya, with your thoughts on this data quality and data governance conversation.
I'm so sorry that the sound is breaking a little bit, but I think you're just asking for my opinion on this one. In terms of when is data good enough, for me, it's actually around the outcome and thinking about data across its life cycle. So when is data good enough is when we can trust it at every moment that we use it, when we can make great decisions from it, and when it delivers great customer outcomes. So for me, we have a lot of regulations and obligations and policies, but if we can, and this goes to the question around data literacy, if we can actually have all users of data, firstly, we secure by design, so they shouldn't have to worry about that. But if they are actually always thinking about how am I going to use this downstream, what are the consequences and impacts of what I'm doing, and is it actually going to do the right thing for my customer at the end of the day, then that's when your data is good enough. And I think that I just keep it that simple, because if you have that guideline of the intent and the goodness that it delivers at the other end, it makes all of the other questions around what you do with it much easier to answer. So therefore, data literacy, or data fluency as we call it, is really important, because you need to have data like an English 101. Everyone needs to be able to speak with a certain level of understanding so that they get the goodness out of it. So we tend to work on storytelling and use cases that help people to understand both the good side, but also the consequences of it going wrong.
100%. Thank you so much. And you've read the audience mind there, because the question that's come in is around the relationship with data literacy and data quality there. So I will pitch that question in a moment. But thank you so much for everyone's thoughts. I'm loving these comments. They are so great to see you guys engaging with this panel. So, as I say, Gabriella from the Netherlands has asked, how do you see the data literacy level of the organization in relationship to the data quality? Jerry, I'll come to you first for that one.
So I think this is not a causal relationship. In my experience, organizations that have good quality data, that understand the value of data, typically have been born digital companies, and because of their genesis, they hire the type of people who are data literate. In some of those born analog companies, I think there is a growing movement towards improving the quality of your people, making them data literate, also improving the quality of your data. I don't think just by having good data quality, you automatically increase the data literacy of your people. Though if the people in your company are data literate, it's highly likely that they will place due emphasis on data, and they will expend the kind of effort and resources that are needed to build those capabilities, either internally or the sourcing capabilities to get data externally, that will allow them to better utilize that data.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Gladwin, would you like to add any value to that before we move to our next question?
Look, I agree with Jerry. I think it works hand in hand. The more data literate you are, the more you understand how good or bad your data is. And I feel that if you increase your data literacy, it's, all the boats sort of float up with the tide sort of thing. And look, I think everything should start with education, culture, and just ensuring you're moving that up.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. Gabriella, I hope that added value and answered your question. If it didn't, then please do connect with all of our guests today, and I'm sure they will be more than happy to delve a bit deeper into those questions. But as always, keep them coming. And do feel free to share this live stream with your network as well. We always want to make sure that everyone can see as much as possible when it comes to visibility. So let's move on. My next question. How is DataOps accelerating AI, advanced analytics, and digital transformation within your organization? Dan, I'll come to you first for that one.
Sure. I would say we're just starting to see that. The adoption has been uneven. In our firm, we have some places that, believe it or not, I just heard it this morning, they're still running COBOL applications on mainframes. And others, they have invested in, because we are, federated approach, individual businesses can invest in things like AI and DataOps and even, more advanced things. So I think what we're seeing is the good results from the early adopters within the firm are starting to be emulated, or people are at least, envious. Like, well, if only we could be like this other part of the company. So that is gradually spreading, but I would say it's very uneven. We have an advanced AI group in Austin, Texas. They've done a great job going out to the businesses and talking to everybody and finding out what they need. And now I just think it's probably another 2 to 5 years before you see it really become widespread within the firm.
Thank you so much. Meena, how about you? How is DataOps accelerating AI, advanced analytics, and digital transformation within your organization?
I can talk about this in generally in the industry trends, Catherine. So DataOps is an emerging field, but when we talk about DataOps, there's also MLOps and AIOps, right? So MLOps and AIOps is somewhat evolving, I would say, in most organizations. It's not a very mature capability that most organizations have implemented. However, DataOps is when it comes to making sure the data pipelines are automated. I think we can say that most organizations are almost there. There is, I would say, at least 95% of the organizations are making use of DataOps very effectively to automate a lot of their workloads. And when it comes to ML and AI ops, the adoption rate is increasing, but I think we are slowly evolving in that space. So overall, I think the adoption rate could be 30% in some industries, and in some industries it's more. But I think the data ops, when it comes to ML and AI ops, it's going to help accelerate a lot of work that a business user wants to achieve. Like, for example, if you're creating analytical models, you want to be able to deploy those models as soon as it gets developed. So there's a lot of operational inefficiencies that you could see in many organizations that is taking longer time for data scientists to deploy their models to production, and those could be streamlined very effectively using MLOps or AI ops. But data ops, on the other hand, I would say many have automated pipelines when it comes to CI/CD pipelines set up to ingest data, and that part of the data organization, the automation, is very mature, and that is what we commonly see in the industry.
Thank you so much for that, Meena. It's always great to have an industry perspective as well as an organizational one. So thank you so much for providing that. Sonya, how about yourself? What are you currently seeing within your organization in a sense of data ops, accelerating AI and advanced analytics?
Yes, so there's a real There's a real need to smash the silos in this space. I think that the way to get to transformation is to bring together machine learning ops, data science, and DevOps, and particularly engineering with software engineering. I think that is the way that we can deliver value at scale fast. I see a lot of siloed activities in businesses where you may have, under the new tribe and agile ways of working, lots of focus on rapid prototyping, but that only goes so far. And unless you're actually thinking about and integrated with the core of the business, then you can't go fast at scale to deliver to customers. So it slows down at that point. So if you can bring these key elements or ingredients together with the front end of the business, which is what we do, we have actually merged our customer experience and our technology teams. So they work together to help to transform. And I think that only through that understanding end to end, and we use steel thread to prove it out, that's the way that you can then codify and take that methodology. So a lot of it is around the actual system itself that you pull together rather than the specific expertise that each needs to bring.
Thank you so much, Sonya. That's absolutely brilliant. Gladwin, I'll come to you. How are you experiencing this topic?
Look, I think the combination of agile methodologies, lean and DevOps to sort of drive DataOps is key, like everyone is saying. I think we're still on the journey and trying to build and put these processes and frameworks in place. So again, it's key that it's done cohesively. But again, to the earlier point is that education, to Sonia's points, breaking down the silos. So look, we're on the journey and it'll take some time. It's very easy to get wrong. So it's key that we do it right and slowly increase the maturity, and from each win, just build upon that. So yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. I'm loving all these sound bites and takeaways today. Absolutely jam-packed of value, as always. Jerry, I'll come to you to wrap up this main point then. How is DataOps accelerating AI, advanced analytics, and digital transformation? And just on that point, I love the amount of notifications that all went off, because that's telling me half an hour is gone, which means we've got 15 minutes left. So if you haven't asked your question, get them into us now so I can put them to these fabulous guests. Jerry, over to you.
All right, so let's unpack this question, right? So if you look at DataOps and you compare that, how is it accelerating digitization? I see this as a sort of a virtuous cycle where one accelerates the other. It's not DataOps that accelerating digitization or vice versa. It's both sort of enabling each other. And then once you have sort of a good DataOps capabilities, then obviously you're doing more analytics, which implies you're also hopefully you're doing more ML, AI, stuff like that, right? But I think the question is around, the attributes of DataOps and what we are seeing in the industry or my company even, right? So if you look at the three sort of traditional attributes of DataOps, which are the good quality underlying data infrastructure, be it automated, which includes governance and all of those things, data lakes, all of those things. The second piece is your service-oriented IT architecture, and the third one is the most difficult piece, I think, which is the culture of agility and experimentation, right? So I think what we are seeing, at least in my company, the data piece of it, I think we have done a fantastic job of. We are probably the industry leaders in that space, and we are known for data in our industry. So we do have a very robust data collection, data storage, data governance, data automation, data curation sort of capabilities, right? So the traditional, what you would call the data pipeline is really strong. Then you bring in, we are, even though we are a born analog company, in terms of our technology infrastructure, it is service oriented. So it does lead itself to rapid experiments. It does lead itself to a very optimized DevOps kind of environment. Then when it comes to the culture of experimentation and rapid iteration, I think that's where there's a lot of things that come into the play. One is obviously there's just not enough talent in a lot of companies to do these kind of things, which we are building. But also we are a highly regulated company in a highly regulated industry. So there are limitations to the kind of things we can and cannot do, right? Unlike some of the big tech companies, we cannot be launching 100 experiments a day because we have to go through an entire compliance or regulatory process before we do that. But I think we are well on a journey and we're sort of pleased with where we are right now.
Fantastic. Now I have the live stream up next to me so that I can see the comments as they come in, and we've had lots of likes come in and we've had lots of applause. But Jerry, what you've just said then sparked a load of light bulbs. So you have clearly were very insightful with that comment to our audience. So thank you to those who sent in those light bulb reactions. Always nice to see. So thank you, Jerry, for adding in that value. So as I say, we are just shy of 15 minutes now left with these brilliant guests. So do get those questions or comments or thoughts in via the comment section. So my last question that I've got for you, really, that I have planned, that I knew I wanted to ask you, is all about the hidden data economy. The conversation around monetizing data in any form has increased. I'm hearing it far more through people on the podcast, those who attend our Corinium events. Monetizing data definitely needs to be spoken about a bit more. So I wanted to chat about that today. So what steps will you be taking to uncover the hidden data economy and begin monetizing your data? Now, this answer could be kind of industry-wide or more specific to your company, whichever you feel more comfortable in sharing. So Meena, I'll come to you first for that one.
Sure. So there are various ways that an organization can monetize data. But then when we talk about monetization, so you're talking about like internal use cases for which you might use data and you would fuel business growth. And there are also external use cases. Some companies specialize on data and they sell data for external customers. And we see that very commonly happening in the industry. Internally, if you have good quality data and good foundational data capabilities, you're going to use the data to monetize and make business decisions, proactive decisions that could help with the business growth. So certainly there's always value in understanding the data and making use of the data to make critical decisions that would fuel business growth. However, when we talk about external use cases, some companies are focused on taking the data, the publicly available data, and selling the data to consumers. So for example, the weather data, right? So we get the weather reports, but the data is made available to us. Some companies specialize in getting that data and predictions, and then we make use of that data. So it's a publicly available data that is used, and we monetize the data based on its application in the industry, right? Like consumers can get the data, like for example, insurers can get data about hurricanes or any weather-related events and make use of it. Whereas the company that sells the data, they're going to be investing in data capabilities to understand that data better and provide insights to the insurers. So, so there's variety of other use cases that we can talk about. But I would say it depends on the use case and what industry the organization is in. There's internal data monetization and also external data monetization. It depends on how you want to use the data for your use cases.
Thank you so much, Meena. And that is such a crucial point, right? It depends how you want to use your data. I've actually got a podcast episode coming up that I recorded earlier this week with one of our thought leaders here in the UK, all about data lenses, because it is so important to understand what you're using the data for and why, because that's going to really influence kind of the outcome and end goals as well. Dan, how about you? What steps will you be taking to uncover the hidden data economy and begin to monetize that data?
This is a great topic, and having worked for firms like Dun and Bradstreet and having outfits like LexisNexis in my client base, there are firms that all they do is sell data. Most firms don't fall into that category. State Street, for example, we do sell data, but one of the advantages we have is that 12 to 15% of the wealth of the entire world is inside our infrastructure. So we can see flows, we can see trends. We actually have a unit of global markets where I'm located, and it's called State Street Associates, and they sell research products and generate new value from existing data. You have to be very careful, obviously, with permission. So if one of our clients doesn't want to be included in an index or a trend, they certainly have the right to opt out, and then we just don't use that data. But we also have some pretty advanced technology, for example, around pricing. I think it's called market stat or price stat. I think we actually have both, but we are scraping e-commerce websites all over the world 24 hours a day to get the prices for commodity items, things that are being sold on Amazon or whatever, and then compiling them, and we can track the price movements over time in real time. So, within a day. So there's lots of opportunity there. And I think if you kind of take the perspective of just take another look at your business and see what kind of data you have that might be of value to someone else, there is a possibility at least that you can sell it. And so many people that I work with, they're used to thinking of data as exhaust. You have the stuff coming in, you have your business process, you have the stuff coming out again, but everything else is just like exhaust from the factory. And so this is really a chance for us to look at that exhaust and see what nuggets of value there are that can then be monetized, even if it's just internally, because it could be cost avoidance or cost savings that, maybe as a result of being smarter about our operations, we know we don't have to spend that extra money that we currently are spending.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. So there was a question in the chat about, is there an example of data monetization internally? So anything that you do to save cost or help enable your business grow, that would be a use case for internal data monetization. It's not necessary you would take the data and sell it always, but you would be ending up in promoting a product based on the data, and there could be revenue generated out of the product sales. So that could be a good use case of internal data monetization. You could be investing a lot of dollars towards a particular project, but based on the data, you might be able to cut short and reduce the investment. So those are some typical use cases. The word data monetization is very fancy, but how do you make use of data to drive your business and enable business growth and also come up with cost savings is all about internal data monetization. But then there are companies who sell data specifically. All they do is they take the data, collect the publicly available data, massage the data, prepare the data, and sell that data to other consumers who need that data. So that is the typical use case of external data monetization.
Thank you so much, Meena. I'm quite careful with the guests I choose for LinkedIn Live because it can be intimidating, but I knew choosing you lovely fellows who are absolutely happy to interact with our audience is always great. So Debbie, I hope that you got value in that answer, and do connect with Meena to dive a bit deeper into that as well, because I know we only have a few minutes left. So just a final answer on this question. Sonya, I'll come to you next. What steps have you been taking to uncover that hidden data economy?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because it's really around the definition of monetization, which I think Meena was mentioning before. To me, it's about we are a custodian of our customers' data. It's not our data. So the information that we receive, we have to look after. I think where the value is when we start to think about how you apply it, how you create new value from it, and how your business can then both deliver a better experience as a result of that. I think where a big opportunity lies is when we start to augment data and start to bring barriers down in terms of bringing different types of data together to create new value. that's where I think it starts to get really exciting, and where the data economy starts to become really interesting. But again, it's got to be done with the customer's consent. It has to be done in a way where the customer actually sees value from it and would therefore say, yes, I want you to actually join this data or do something different with it. So I think that where the opportunity is there, if it's transparent and if it's respected, and that if we never forget that it's not actually ours in the first place.
Thank you so much, Sonya, for joining us. So we have 2 minutes left of this live stream, and something I always like to do at the end of my panels is create a list that's easy for our audience to take away back to the office. Well, depending on what time of day it is, because we've got a bit of a range of times of day just on this panel, whether you're taking it back to the office to start your day, or perhaps you're going to think about it to bring to the office tomorrow morning. So what is the one takeaway you would love the audience members to bring from the discussion we've had here today? Gladwin, I'll start with you.
Look, actually, I might just start where we ended, which is, adding to all the points raised and further reiterating Sonia's point, is I always use the statement around monetization of data. I use the principle of just because you can, should you? All right, so I think that key principle, and this is where data governance will help feed in and work through that question. I would say that would be sort of the key thing to take away from this, especially around the monetization. Not everyone's excited about it, and it's like, great, let's potentially sell this data. We have to remember it's our customer's data, and we have to do what's right for our customer. So that principle of just because you can, should you, should help drive that.
Thank you so much, Gladwin. Thank you for getting up so early to join us on this panel discussion today. It's very appreciated.
No worries.
Jerry, how about you? What is your one takeaway from this discussion you would love everyone to consider, digest, and think about? Oh, we made it almost to the end, but Jerry, you're on mute.
Sorry, apologies. It's once a day. This is my first time today. Well, I think it was a great discussion. Thank you, everybody. I think the thing that I would encourage everybody to sort of think about a little bit more as you go back to your day jobs is the idea around agility and experimentation. Right? Studies after studies have shown that is the single most predictor of success in the digital world, the ability to experiment, the ability to iterate. And so we touched upon it. Multiple panelists talked about this today. I think that's really one of the most important things.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Thank you for joining us. Dan, how about yourself? What are you going to be walking away with from this conversation?
I think it's around the importance of data culture. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so as we start to all try to become more data driven, there was a great study by, I think it was by New Vantage Partners. They surveyed a lot of Fortune 500 data leaders, and it turned out like 92% of the obstacles to becoming more data driven were business related. They were process, they were culture, it was strategy. That only 8% of them were technology related. So I think what I'm taking away from that is the need to promote more of a data-driven culture, and knowing this is not a one-shot thing. We're going to be doing this for the next few years at least, because as someone pointed out, you want to hire those data-driven people in and then help the people you've already got become more data-driven, and that can only really be driven effectively by people at the top. So that requires, in our case, a cultural change.
Thank you so much, Dan. Meena, what is your one takeaway from the discussion?
I would say investing in foundational capabilities is very crucial message that I have taken out of this discussion. Another one I would think about is making sure that there is increase in data literacy. Right. So the more the organization is literate, the more you can derive benefit out of the data and investments in data. So being a data literate organization is very crucial for anyone to be successful.
Thank you so much, Meena. And last but certainly not least, another early riser with us today is Sonya. What is your one takeaway from this discussion, Sonya?
Thanks so much for having me on the panel. So I guess the takeaway for me is that we all work in different parts and we all touch data in different ways. And I think to be data driven, we need to talk about this more, but talk about it in a way that has a clear line of sight to the value that you're delivering. And if you don't know what that end value is, you need to find out, because you'll be better at what you do if you understand the context of how the data is being used. And if you can talk in those terms of value, then other people start to get it and understand it and want to be a part of it. So it's a really exciting field. I think that we have a lot to do in terms of telling our story, and these panels are a really great way of sharing. I've really enjoyed the morning. Thank you.
You are most welcome, but thank you. And thank you to all of you for lending your voice towards this topic. We really, really appreciate it. And judging by the comments, the community does as well. So thank you all very much. So that brings us to the end of this wonderful LinkedIn Live panel. Now, perhaps you joined us only halfway through the discussion, or you'd like to revisit it. Don't worry, you will be able to do that. We will pop it up on demand by the end of the week. To access this, head over to the Business of Data platform. My wonderful colleague Mel will be posting the link to this in the comments. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do. That means you have unlimited access to all of our content, which includes articles, podcasts, reports, you name it, we've got it. And of course, make sure you're following us here on socials as well, so that you're always alerted to when we go live and the rest of our content. But thank you very much for joining us. Again, thank you to our guests, and I'll see